Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Devaney Hubbard, and I am the Senior Event Specialist at Cal State San Bernardino. On behalf of the CSU Event Professionals Network, Executive Council, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to the second day of our 9th annual conference. Whether you are attending for the first time or you have participated in previous conferences, we hope that you find today's content very valuable. Before we begin, I want to give you all some background on the Event Professionals Network. The CSU-EPN was founded in 2012 when Chris Lindmark and the talented San Diego State's events team invited event professionals from all across the CSU system for a day-long workshop to discuss their challenges, share best practices, and network with each other. It was such a rewarding experience that it was decided to formalize the group and host an annual conference at different CSU campuses each year. The Executive Council was formed a few years later to provide an infrastructure and ensure the network continued to pay it forward and provide assistance to the new campus hosts. In spite of the pressures of the pandemic and with the ongoing support of the CSU Advancement Academy, the 2020-2021 academic year proved to be another year of growth for the network. In the last year, we have reached 100% participation rate from all 23 CSU campuses, as well as representatives from several UCs and private institutions. The names of the Executive Council representatives are here on your screen. If you're interested in serving on the Executive Council or one of the subcommittees within the network, please feel free to reach out to Phyllis Grillo or reach out to your campus representative. The CSU-EPN has many resources to help keep the network connected, including a listserv. Here you can opt in to receive updates, post questions or challenges you are facing, and receive feedback and answers from our members. We encourage you to connect with us on social media as well by joining the CSU-EPN Facebook, LinkedIn group, or following us on our brand new Instagram. You can also explore the recordings of previous CSU-EPN programs on our YouTube channel. The links to all of these platforms can be found in your conference email, as well as in the chat. And please share the fun of this year's conference by using the hashtag CSUEPN21. Now in its second year, the CSU-EPN Awards program has expanded with 2 new awards. In addition to the Founders Award, the Beyond the Call of Duty Award, in addition to the Founders Award and the Beyond Call of Duty Award, the categories now also include MVP, which is Most Valuable Professional, and the Rising Star. All 4 of these will be awarded on day 4 of the conference, which is July 29th. The deadline for the nominations was recently extended to end of day July 16th, so please, please, please don't delay nominating a worthy colleague. Finally, I want to thank our summer series sponsors, Iconic Group, which is our platinum sponsor, Marching Order, Socio, the Commencement Group, and Chameleon Creative. Your support has really enhanced our event, and we could not have done it without you all. I will now welcome to the stage Doug Weiland to make a few remarks on behalf of Iconic Group.
Thank you, Dev. My name is Doug Weiland. I am the sales manager for Grad Images Balfour and the Iconic Group. It's a pleasure to be a part of the conference and see so many names that I recognize. Many of you have seen me at NACO, PACRO, and possibly even on your campus. I wish this conference were in person, as I'd much rather be on the coast as opposed to the 110-degree plus temperatures here in Phoenix. But it's a dry heat. Today is a perfect day for me to do the introduction of today's 2 sessions. We are exploring personal and professional development for event specialists. The goal is to offer ideas and suggestions on how to keep a good balance between personal and professional lives. Who here hasn't canceled that family activity at the last minute to make sure everything is done? I can close my eyes right now and see my wife's face as I call to tell her I'm working late and I won't be home for dinner. So appropriately, these sessions are about working smarter, not harder. Those that know me know I'm all about that. It's also a perfect topic for the Iconic Group, Grad Images in Balfour. Our vision is to become a one-stop shop for everything commencement. While we still have a couple pieces of the puzzle to put together, imagine being able to make one call to confirm all the details of your commencement or grad fair. Need to confirm that photographer? Order last-minute faculty robes. or make sure your rings, invitations, and student regalia are ready for the grad fair? What used to be 3 or 4 calls to multiple vendors, now you can handle with one call. In addition, there are revenue sharing partnerships for those schools that utilize the all-in strategy. What could be better? Work smarter, easier budget, and easier stress. So with that being said, I look forward to seeing some of you at our virtual booth or talking with you in the near future. With that, I'll turn it back over to Dev. Dev?
Thank you, Doug, and good luck with that Phoenix heat. I don't envy you at all for that.
Thank you.
Before we begin today's sessions, I want to remind everyone that the CSU-EPN is committed to bringing together event professionals within higher education to develop industry best practices, share event ideas, and support one another. Membership is open to all event professionals within the CSU system, as well as the UC system and private higher education institutions in California. Our membership is completely free, so please help us grow the network by spreading the word. And now I'll hand the show back over to my colleagues to begin today's session.
Thank you, Dev and Doug. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Camarena. I'm the manager of the CSU Advancement Academy, and I'm going to be facilitating today's sessions. Welcome again to day 2 of the summer series, which is looking to bring to the forefront some of the key challenges facing many event professionals every day. And we're looking to learn ways to improve our overall personal and professional development. Just like Olympic athletes train and hone their skills, we're looking for today's sessions to provide coaching and conditioning to us in the event network. Our first session, which I'm very excited for, is an interview with Dr. Jerry Echeverria, where we will discuss how to find the leader in ourselves and how to manage change and work with others. We will have then, following that interview, we will have a 10-minute stretch break. And then after that, we will have a panel conversation on the same webinar link where I will be joined by my colleague, Mary Coder, Senior Event Specialist at CSU Bakersfield and Secretary of the CSUEPN. And as well, we'll be joined by Christian Butler, a licensed marriage and family therapist and program director for New Start Recovery. The 3 of us will explore strategies for maintaining a healthy work-life balance for ourselves. We'll explore certifications and professional development opportunities available in the events industry, and of course, exchange some good time management tips. Sorry there. Turning now to our keynote interview. You may remember Dr. Echeverria making a similar presentation at last year's summer series. Her wisdom left us with a lot to think about and gave us a really powerful morale boost. For those reasons, we've invited Jerry back. Today's conversation will cover some of the same themes as the previous year, but we will address them with questions and situations specific to the events professionals and more specifically situations that they faced in the last few months. The first few questions will be pre-scripted as part of the interview, and the later part will allow us to look to the audience for your questions to pose to Dr. Echeverria. Please use the Q&A feature in the webinar to submit your questions. We have a member of our event team monitoring that feature and will help me pose those questions to Jerry. For those in the audience who are not familiar with our guests, Dr. Echeverria has spent the better part of the past 5 decades in education, serving as Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs for the CSU system until 2010 when she retired. Dr. Echeverria generated a statewide movement to increase graduation rates in higher education, championed an initiative to improve the experience of California students transferring from community colleges to 4-year universities and colleges, as well as advocated for the quality of academic programs offered to the largest cumulative student body in the nation, which is the CSU. After her retirement, Dr. Echeverria began offering the leadership course to doctoral students in 2 of California's doctoral programs for educational leaders, as well as co-leading large public courses internationally and offering numerous talks on leadership at university campuses. Recently, she served as interim provost at Sonoma State University. Now I want to go ahead and stop my screen share here, and I want to welcome Dr. Echeverria to turn on her video and unmute herself and join us here on the virtual stage.
Sam, I cannot turn my video on, or the host has stopped it.
Oh, give me 1 second there. Apologies there, Jerry.
There we go.
The new frontier here. There you are. Welcome.
Yeah, it was right in front of me, big instructions. So
No worries. Alrighty. Well, glad to have you here, and we're really looking forward to kind of picking your brain and just tapping into the wisdom that you've acquired serving in so many leadership positions for us here at the CSU. Yeah, and just welcome again.
yeah, thank you, Sam. It's a pleasure to be with you. And I'm very fond of the California State University and the University of California. I'm a graduate of UC too. I've been thinking about all of you folks because I know it's time to get ready for fall. And I can imagine what it might feel like for an event manager, an event professional, to be anticipating all those people coming back to campus and having expectations that you will or will not be able to meet. And I know that that's a real challenge.
That is a perfect foreshadowing to the first question that I have for you, actually.
Okay.
So allow me here to give it a little bit of context to set it up, and I would love to get your thoughts after. So given all the challenges and the changes of the last 18 months, specifically with shifting health orders and new tools available in the event space, there's often been a disconnect between the expectations that clients of our events team and their leadership have for a particular event or series, and between that and what's permissible to teams given various parameters. Some good examples of this are commencement ceremonies in the last couple of sessions. There were a wide range of intense expectations from the graduates themselves and their families. There were also expectations from academic tradition. All the while, events professionals had to kind of manage all of those within the more limited parameters than they're used to. I would love to get your thoughts in situations like this. How can we empower ourselves to, advocate for ourselves, whether that means saying no or to better articulate the parameters that we're working with?
It's not an easy row to hoe, as they say. I appreciate that. You have the interesting position in the university of having to deal with the clients, the external clients, like the students and their parents at graduation, but also the internal clients, which is the university and its expectations. And when it comes to expectations, almost everybody expects you to do more than you probably actually can do. So one of the challenges a couple of challenges for you folks and for anyone on campus is that one must never forget that you're in it together, that you're actually in it together. Sometimes it looks like, from an event professional's view or from an academic's view, that this is the job of the university, because that's how you see it. That's the glasses you wear, because that's what you're accountable for. But in reality, everybody on a campus is moving toward a successful, effective university, and sometimes that gets forgotten. So one of the things that is so important is to be working on that sense of collective, we're in this together, we're going to create a future together, we're working on something together. Our goals are really aligned more than they are contrasting. To work on that when there's not a crunch time. Now, I know that there are a lot of crunch times for event managers because it's one event after another event after another event. But in that time when you're not absolutely at the deadline, that's a time to really actually do the groundwork to create a sense of team that may not be there when things get stressful. You want it to be there before it gets stressful so that you have a chance of having that experience as you go through. In so many words, event planners are not the only people responsible for the success of an event. The bosses are, the visionaries are, the participants are. So things can get a little out of whack.
Awesome.
Awesome.
So what I'm getting kind of from that response is that we should focus maybe more on the why of a lot of things rather than the how. Am I off base there, or am I Okay.
Not at all. Not at all.
One,
I mean,
one always has to double check, right?
not at all. I mean, a lot of us, and I did when I was working, I'd go to work and I'd be doing something that didn't seem to make any sense to me unless I could remind myself of what was the greater purpose. Why was I doing this work? So that a phone call to someone may not look like the most important thing I need to do at that time. But if I could remember that what it was for a purpose bigger than me, for a purpose that we were all invested in, then the why we do things is much more compelling than how we do it. I mean, really, how we do it is secondary to why we do it. And universities and people in universities often forget, just really lose track of, we're actually out to transform and make a massive contribution to the future of our communities. That's really, look at all the event professionals here.
Mhm.
It may be that we have a tendency to look at those events as showcases, and they are in some way, but they aren't just events. They are the university reaching out to the community. They are the university reaching out to its internal community. And that relationship is, precious, because it's out of that relationship that the university has with the community, they're going to be able to make a difference for the members of that community.
I love it. We're events are the bridge between the university and the community. Continuing kind of on the thought of the how and the why. It kind of more theoretically, long-term speaking, it of course makes more sense to focus on the why. But when perhaps we're in these planning meetings or we're in these, these briefs for these events that are coming up, do you have any particular strategies on how we can maybe, in this, being event professionals that are probably not part of leadership, in ways that they can turn the conversation away from those how to the why? Any more applied tips that you can share with the group here?
Well, first of all, everybody has the opportunity to lead no matter what their title is. So you said you characterize it as event managers talking to leadership. Well, having been in one of those leadership positions, I know that when I go into the meeting, I'm counting on the event manager to lead me through what I need to know. And so that's just an aside. Now, the how-tos, life is so simple, and it's not simple. It's simple and not easy. I'll put it that way. Life requires quite a bit of discipline. And by that, I mean, we have a tendency to be offended if things don't go our way. We have a tendency to be defensive if somebody says, oh, that event didn't work well. Rather than being defensive, if we could be really get that what the person is saying is they are offering advice about how the event could have gone better. So if we can recontextualize it and bring to every interaction that we have a context that, look, I'm okay, they're okay, we're going to be fine here. And what is it that we can do to maximize the impact of this event, whatever the impact is. Now, a lot of times people who organize the leadership that asks you to do the event doesn't really know what they want to accomplish. So it's okay, and this will help to ask, well, what is the goal? So that the event planner isn't just planning an event. The event planner is lining up with the goal of the university leadership.
I love that. Now, it's, the topic sentence of the event really is what should be communicated kind of first and foremost, and then kind of, I think, recommunicated. Might be a good idea to.
Yeah, and an intelligent administrator who would say, this is what I want to accomplish. What do you guys see that you can contribute to accomplishing that? So then you're in a dance with each other rather than, oh, they told me I got to do this, and that's an important environment to create.
Mhm.
So if the leadership isn't providing that, then the event planner says something like, what can I do to further the goal? And what is the goal, by the way?
Mhm.
I mean, you can say it in a nice way. You don't have to be awful, you know, or disrespectful. You just say, look, I really want to line up with what you want to accomplish. And can you tell me more about that so I can do my best job to support that?
Mm. Again, kind of appealing to the service-oriented focus that a lot of events teams have is, you know, part of the service is strategic planning a little bit too, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And, you know, all of us who work in teams, you know, really will be benefited by employing the discipline that it takes to converse like an adult rather than
Mm.
out of our fears or concerns or nervousness or anxiety or worried, you know, instead of that, you know, kind of getting to the heart of the matter. What is it we want to accomplish here?
Mhm. Definitely.
Yeah.
And then running a hypothetical here, say perhaps it is a particularly charged situation where there's been some time invested in a particular event, and maybe it's changed hands, maybe it was one division to the other kind of mid-process, and some of that kind of empathy and kind of strategic insight is not there. And I'm running kind of a worst case scenario at you. Any thoughts or advice that you could provide folks as they find themselves kind of dropped into that situation, or they have that situation kind of evolve around them?
Well, there's a lot going on in a scenario like that, you know. Let's say an event planner is asked to do something that someone else is in the middle of and has failed, and the event planner is going to rescue it, so to speak, from the administrator's point of view. We're going to rescue this thing. If the event planner says, I can't do that, there's going to be a certain listening. You see, I'll start in another way. All of us who work with each other have a listening for each other and already always listening. And I like to be aware of, when I was working in the CSU and in my daily life, I'm aware that certain people have a certain listening for me. Some of them think I'm really great. Some of them think I'm a little weird. Some of them think blah, blah, blah. Some of them think I'm bossy, you know, whatever they think. Now, when they ask me something, I'm going to be speaking to that listening that they already have for me. So an event planner needs to be mindful of what is the listening this boss has for me. If that boss has a listening for me that I always say no, or I always come up with reasons why it's going to be difficult, they're not going to listen to me. And then that'll give me a reason to make them wrong because they're not listening to me. And the whole thing's going to flop. So somebody's got to be the adult in the room. Okay. Now, most people are a little timid about bossing their bosses. Okay. So what might happen in that situation, might happen in that situation is you have to bite your lip. I don't mean eat crow. I don't mean make yourself wrong. I mean, be the adult in the room. Say, okay, you've handed something to me. I don't have the usual amount of time, but I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to do everything I can. And I want you to be aware that it's going to take something because it's not set up right. And I'm going to have to correct this, and then I'm going to have to spend a lot more time. I'm not going to be able to do my other projects. I'm going to do this. You see, there's a way of, so you're not being about it.
It's very, very objective. These are the facts. These are the dates. These are the number of weeks. These are the number of staff I have, and mapping that out for.
And that's earlier I was referring to, it requires discipline that takes discipline, because really what's going on inside you is, I want to shoot you. You know, who the hell do you think you are? that stuff that goes on inside us. And I'm so familiar with that. We're all familiar with it. But that isn't effective. It's not effective. And if you want to be effective, then you may have to put aside some of the irritation or disappointment or anger or frustration that you have and be the adult in the room. Some of you are fortunate enough to have bosses that are adult and they can hear you and they have a regard for you. They have a listening for you, that you're effective. In those cases, then you still wouldn't say, oh, you know, I can't do that. Oh, that's just really rotten. You'd still be the adult, but you'd have a lot more, the person listening to you would give you a lot more space.
Yeah, thoughtful insight there. And I want to just maybe pivot the focus of the conversation a little bit, but it's related. You know, the past 18 months has been universally tough for everyone. We've seen the lines of work and home blur, and in some cases just disappear altogether. Wondering if I can get your thoughts on strategies, or just thoughts on how we can keep a healthy work-life balance for ourselves and for our teams, for those of us that supervise others.
Well, you know, for sure, those of you who supervise others need to watch out for each other. I mean, if you want your unit to work, you want your unit to be healthy. You want to be thoughtful. On the other hand, I've never appreciated the term work-life balance, because it implies that you would have X amount of work and X amount of relaxation. And that's really not how life presents itself. You know, it's not quite practical. I would say that what people really want isn't balance. What people really want is fulfillment and satisfaction. And for any healthy human being, we do need to, you know, have a good diet and have enough rest and have enough time, diversion in our schedule, time with our family, time to exercise, time to get out and, you know, appreciate the weather, whatever the heck it is, because it differs for people. But, you know, if I were a boss, and sometimes when I was a boss, I would ask the people, particularly the people I work with most closely, you know, what do you like to do? What do you do when you're not here? You know, what do you do when you're not here? Oh, yeah. And if I ever noticed that they were getting downtrodden, I would say, have you done that thing that you like to do recently? And it gives them an opportunity to say, you know, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm working extra time. And, you know, your job as a boss is to help them manage their time. That is to say, look, maybe you could spend a couple hours later today getting this complete and come in tomorrow later. You know, actually, as a boss, looking from the whole rather than looking from the immediacy of what has to happen. On the other hand, if you're not the boss and you're trying to be a star, and in our society, trying to be a star is like working all the time, right? And, you know, you're going to kill yourself, or you're going to kill something. You're going to kill some aliveness in your life. You're going to either kill your relationships with your husbands and wives or your children. You'll sacrifice. I know this because I have. You'll sacrifice relatedness to your family, special occasions in your family life, rather than managing yourself. Actually managing yourself. You look out and say, this event's coming. This is really important to my kid. I'm going to make this important to the family. I'm blocking this time off. I'm not working late that day. I'm not. I'll come in early tomorrow. I'll work late tomorrow. I'm not doing that, because that's a priority. And it's when we all start managing ourselves that way. When I was at Fresno, I had this agreement with my office,
Mhm.
that there would be times in my work calendar, which they managed,
Mhm.
that were blocked off. There was no way they were to put anything in there. You know, God himself could come down and nothing could be put in that time slot, because I knew I had scheduled it for something else.
Mm.
And when I started doing that, I had more freedom. I didn't have balance. I still worked a lot,
Mm.
and I didn't want balance. I wanted not to feel a victim.
Mm.
So how do you not feel a victim? You be responsible for yourself. You manage yourself. You may not be, you know, you can't sit on the beach every day, but given all that you've got going on,
Mhm.
manage yourself.
Awesome. I love that tip about just the no meeting zone on your calendar, because I've taken a peek at some executives' calendars, and I don't know if this is because of the pandemic and it's easy to schedule meetings right next to each other, but the full 8 hours of their workday is back-to-back meetings. If you have a particularly astute assistant, they're going to be smart and schedule your meeting 10 minutes after the hour to give you a bio break. Otherwise, you're just bouncing between meetings, and you know, and you have to make time for email and you have to make time for other projects as well. And I think folks that aren't executives are guilty of that as well too.
Sure. So, I mean, you actually need to leave some time for thinking and studying. You know, if somebody comes to you with an issue, you've got to read up on it, you know.
Mhm.
Plus, it just doesn't work that well to just go meeting after meeting. It's my notice in people I speak with that when the pandemic started, everybody felt, not everybody, but a lot of people reported that they had a lot of, you know, kind of downtime.
Mm.
And then it wasn't long before everybody was complaining about having, you know, like the Zoom disease or something, because you're just in front of a screen
Mhm.
hour after hour after hour. That's not so great either.
Yeah. I love the time to take to reflect and just plan out your week. I have some colleagues in development, and you know, they live on a very kind of quota metrics base. So they take, you know, the Mondays or the Fridays off to kind of plan out their week so they can maximize the time that they have during then. And I think that's a strategy everybody can use. And I love how we're already veering into some of the topics we'll be discussing later in this panel.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why the team that worked on today's sessions group these two together, because there's quite a bit of overlap there.
Yeah, you can really support one another if you do it as a team. So for instance, this office, we're working, this is in person, we're working from 8 to 9, but we're not responding to email or calls from 8 to 9. Now, it depends on the university and how it's organized and everything. But that can be very beneficial, and you just spend that hour getting yourself organized. You know, that time to organize sometimes is really undervalued. Ironically, if you do spend the time to organize before a meeting, the meeting does not have to take an hour.
True.
There's no magic pill that says all meetings have to be an hour. You know, I started when I was in Fresno, I started doing walking meetings with deans. And, you know, we spent the whole time, but the point was we got to walk. You know, we got to move, which was valuable. Anyway.
I love that. And I love that for when we return back to campus too, when there's going to be some protocol around, you know, meeting in bigger groups, or I know, for instance, at the Chancellor's office now, up until recently, they were really recommending everybody meet outside, just because you're in outside and with running air and things like that for safety protocols. And I love the idea of going out for a walk and having walking meetings. Yeah, so I'm going to save that one for myself.
Yeah, use it. It's invigorating. You know, you got to time yourself, but that's okay.
Yeah, but once you kind of learn the route, I think you have your 5-minute or 10-minute route, and you just from there and back, and you know that's a good window of time to meet with a colleague, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walk
So,
along the harbor.
yes. Yeah. Definitely. So I want to just take this moment to tell our audience here to please not be shy and submit your questions for Jerry. We look forward to hearing what you guys are thinking. Maybe something we've tapped on has sparked a similar experience that you had in the recent months. Please, we want to hear them. Go ahead and drop them in the Q&A.
Sam, one thing I would want to say, before I got into university life, I was teaching high school at San Clemente High School. And the principal would bring in somebody every year to give us a talk. And the talk was always by some university professor who was in charge of education and had the newest, freshest idea about how to be effective. And I would hate it if our conversation lands that way for you people, because I'm not attempting to share with you a pep talk about how great life is, or this is the answer to all of the issues that plague you. I'm not doing that at all. I'm just saying that you are a valuable resource, and treating yourself as a valuable resource and others as a valuable resource, even if you don't agree with them and you don't like them, can make a big difference for you. And I know that to be true because I've seen it to be true. So this is not a pep talk. Not at all. Okay.
Although it is, I think, already better than a lot of TED Talks out there, but that's just my bias of living in a space where I see a lot of speakers. But yeah.
No, thanks.
Awesome. So yes, I'll reiterate my call to the audience here. We'd love to hear what you guys are curious about, your questions. But continuing kind of on our theme of looking towards the future and kind of planning ahead both for ourselves and for our teams. What are your thoughts in terms of the way that leadership has either changed or maybe some elements of it have been emphasized by the pandemic? You hear it on the news and on the radio all the time. The pandemic shone a new light on our society and our country, and all the things that were there we've seen again are actually a bigger issue than we thought before. Did we see anything like that happen in leadership in your opinion?
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting, that at least interesting to me, that I've been noticing out of the pandemic is that while jobs are opening up, not everybody's going back to their old jobs. The pandemic has given people an opportunity to really look at whether what they left is what they want to continue doing. Now, some people aren't in the circumstance where they really feel like they have a choice. They've got to be earning for their family and whatnot. But I think there's a bit of a shift in value. Sitting at home for 16 months with your dearly beloved family, or if you're on your own, gives you a lot of time to think, a lot of time to not just think, but to look and see what is it I want to be doing in life. So I think there will be that impact, and it will impact the universities like it will impact the rest of society. I also think that the universities themselves, ever since I've been around in higher education specifically, I've had numerous conversations with faculty about how the university itself should change. I don't mean CSU, I mean universities. And they're very traditional, this is the way it's got to be. And there was a big crack in that picture when online universities started getting accredited, because everybody else got nervous, and all of the traditional universities, the CSU and the UC, would say, well, that's inferior. And we used to get away with that because WASC wouldn't accredit them. But WASC started accrediting. And that changed the game. There are a lot of issues yet to be revealed and unconcealed regarding learning, actual learning. I used to think that we don't learn very well online. I'm not as sure about that as I used to be. I think that there are a lot of things that happen online, like this kind of intimacy that you and I are having, which is actually quite more intimate than me standing in front of a room and talking.
Mhm.
This kind of intimacy is available and is opening up something. But learning happens, you see, we've had the misconception that learning happens because the university professors, giving out information. No, learning happens with the student. Whether you're in school or out of school, whether you're wanting to get something from the video, wanting to get something. So anyway, I think that online learning is eventually going to break up our traditional notion of universities. And I don't think we will lose traditional universities, but traditional universities are going to have to get more and more adapted to what real learning is. And the problem with all that is that the learning takes place with the learner. So how do you
Get inside
encourage
people's heads, right?
Yeah, instead of tell people what they should have in their head.
Exactly.
So yes, it's going to have an impact. In the world of event planning, one of the things about event planning is event planning has changed and always has changed rapidly, because people's tastes and preferences and what's popular changes, and the leadership in the university changes, and what they like changes. So I wouldn't be so worried about change if I were in your field. I just think you want to be ready to dance rather than resist change. You dance with it, and see, we haven't, just to go one step further, most of us are under the illusion that life will be the same tomorrow as it is today. We live life like tomorrow will be like today. And if you think about it, before COVID, you would have never dreamt what was going to happen. But it did. And eventually everybody started wearing masks, and everybody started, staying home or whatever. Everybody responded in the way that they responded. So life is not the only thing for sure about life. There's actually nothing for sure about the future, except for there is one.
Definitely. And I forget who made the quote, but it's something like the only thing that's certain is change. That's, it's a mantra. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not something to be afraid of. That's people get nervous about that, but it's not something to be afraid of. It's something to, be with, dance with. We should all be glad. Because otherwise we'd be really bored.
Ditto. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, change makes things fun most of the time. We're getting in some really excellent questions from the audience, so I'd love to just take a moment for you to answer a few here. Let's see here. This first one, and I'll try my best here to read them verbatim as much as I can and kind of articulate them well. So for many years in the US, the idea that the squeaky wheel gets the grease has been the case. Now it seems that the nail that stands up gets nailed down. Is there a tie into your comment about what to do to stand out and be a star? Can you provide additional suggestions on how to stand out without getting beat up? So how do you, I guess they're asking is, how do you become an all-star without kind of beating yourself up in the process of working at 110%?
There's no easy answer to that question. And I love all the metaphors, by the way. But, if you want to excel, good for you. And if you want to excel, it means that you're going to have to take a risk. Sorry. Because if you want to stand out, standing out means that you stand out. And when we stand out, other people sometimes appreciate that, and other people will want you to not stand out. So you don't have to do anything, but it would be wise to be aware of that, and stand out in the most ethical and authentic way that you can. Do a really good job, work hard, don't praise yourself, and just keep working. Anybody compliments you, just say thank you and don't believe it. Just keep working.
And that gets back to kind of not the balance, but the fulfillment part. If the way you get fulfillment is to, stand out, then you get more out of that than you would in, any detriments that come out of you standing out.
And I would encourage people to seek fulfillment from doing a good job, whether it's recognized or not.
Awesome, I love it. And that actually that got at one of the other questions that were here as well. So excellent job. There's the other one here that jumped around for a second. Okay, other question: what's the best approach to lead in a department where there are colleagues that have been on campus longer than you and are undermining or opposing to supporting with information? So it seems that somebody inherited a rather old team that may already have a clique or a culture, and they're having trouble kind of being a leader and a manager in that situation.
That's, yeah, it's a great question. And it's a situation I've seen many times, really. Kind of like the old timers want the youngster to do the work, but really don't want anything to change. I would not go toe to toe with those people because that makes your life more difficult. I would do a good job and persist. Like, what's the right way to approach things. Now, if they say, we've done that before, we've done that before, we tried that before, it doesn't work. You say, okay, I'm new, let me try it again. Don't argue. Just, yeah, I'm new. Give me a break. I'm just gonna try it again. If I fail, you can be right. No big deal. See, one of the things that we forget in life is that if we're going along in life and we meet resistance, what we often do is try to resist. That makes the resistance bigger. But if you just say, oh, okay, I'm going to just try it. Let me try it. I'll just go like this. And you can watch. There's a little more space. Now that's a strategy, and you've got to do it authentically. You can't do it to manipulate people. But it's like you checked with somebody, these old timers, and they've said, yeah, youngster, that's not going to work. You say, thank you. I got to try it again. I hope you'll allow me to try it again. That, and then just do it as best you can. They may get on the bandwagon later. Oftentimes that happens. They change their mind. Oh, well, hey, youngster, maybe you should try this. And they may have a good idea. So if you cannot make them an enemy, don't contribute to making them an enemy. And don't necessarily agree with them.
True. If we can walk kind of a delicate balance with them in both engaging them, making them feel kind of respected because of their experience, and then towards the end they're being like, well, have we ever tried it this other way? Yeah, easy approach, but and ultimately it's going to come down to the person that's applying it, because they're going to have much more of the details of that situation where they're able to leverage some of those individual nuances to their advantage.
Yeah, it's not ideal. The best would be they'd see the light and they'd change their mind, but that doesn't always happen. So you want to, okay, if you're not going to participate, then just let me do it.
There's nothing wrong with taking some duties off of someone else's plate, right?
Usually they'll let you do it.
Usually. My colleague Tracy is doing a fantastic job of kind of dropping some follow-up details here in the chat, the Q&A feature rather. Folks are asking about your leadership course. Tracy's doing the yeoman's work of dropping some details in there as well. Let's see. Implementing change. Let's see. Wanted to, got a lot of good questions and we touched on a lot of them. Here's a good one that addresses kind of succession planning and maybe some unintentional rivalries that come up amongst colleagues. Quote, how do you navigate climbing the ladder beyond colleagues on your same level, essentially leapfrogging them? Should you discuss the succession plan with them as a team or keep them with you and your supervisor? I know, another noodly question. That's what I'm good for today.
Yeah, no, that's great. Boy, I'm not sure. The circumstances would make a lot of difference there. If the other people on your team want to advance to the same position that you want to advance to, it's likely best advice to not talk to them about it. Whoever, I've had the experience of advancing and once having moved to a title above my colleagues, our friendship changed. And I think you can expect it to change. I didn't expect it to change, but it will change. You may not want to change it before you actually get the position. So I would stay away from that conversation of who's going to get that job, or I'd really like to get that job. Do you want that job? Or good luck. Or, you know, I wouldn't go there. I would have that be private.
And then in that sense, it's more of an objective call. You know, the higher powers that be promoted me over someone else, and it's, you know, it was a decision of the organization. It wasn't anything personal. And there's nothing wrong with, you know, continuing, I think in my opinion, continuing to be friendly.
Oh, no,
yeah, of course.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was saying, you know, for all you know, somebody from the outside might come in. There you are, you know, but this is a really good question. I wish I had about 2 hours on this one.
we're always just teasing that you're insight, Jerry. I'm so sorry. Maybe next time we'll give you the whole day.
No, it's okay. It's just that it's a question that deserves a lot of conversation about the specific circumstances. And I you know, and looking back on my own career, I can see that I was very competitive. I did not know myself to be competitive, but I'm competitive. And when a position, very few positions in the university did I actually want. Ironically, I didn't want to be department chair. I didn't want to be associate dean. You know, I did want to be associate provost because I really liked the provost that was there. I really wanted to work with him. And, you know, I knew that there were others who wanted it too. And it was difficult because they were people I worked with closely. And I got it, and I kind of acted like, I sort of acted like I don't want to say it. I kind of acted like I wasn't going for it, but I really was going for it. And I'm not sure that was the best way to do it now that I look back, because it was a little, I don't know. But I don't know a good way to do that either. So
next time I'll have a rather specific example, I think, that we can dissect.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to leave you with the impression that I, you know, killed anybody or undermined anybody or gossiped about anybody. I didn't do that. But I didn't come to that person's defense either. I stayed away and let the chips fall where they might. So I'm not sure I think I would do it a little bit better this time if I had to do it again.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're right at time for our break, and that means that our conversation is over. I want to give you another heartfelt thank you on behalf of the CSUEPN for lending your time and your insight with us today. I'm already feeling that bit of morale boost that I did last year, so I want to thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you, Sam, and thank you, everybody, and thank you, Tracy, for inviting me, and the board for inviting me. I just also want to thank everybody on the call. I believe in what you're doing. I care about what you're doing. And I would say that there are probably millions of people in the state of California who care about what you're doing, that what you're doing in our state is making a lasting, valuable contribution. And that should not be, don't kid yourself. That's important. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to say it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jerry.
You're welcome.
And with that, you're welcome. I'm going to go ahead and turn off your camera here,
Okay.
and just kind of dismiss the group for a break. Thank you so much, Jerry.
Bye.
Awesome. I hope you're all settled in now. Before we begin our panel discussion, that's going to be our second session, I want to invite to our virtual stage Fernan, who's going to make some remarks on behalf of Marching Order, our Summer Series Gold sponsor. Fernan, please go ahead and turn on your camera and I'll work to get you pinned here. There you are. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Are we ready? Okay, there we go. Hello, everyone. My name's Fernan, and I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Marching Order. Since 2003, Marching Order continues to be the industry leader in providing personalized technologies for ceremonies around the globe. Our products are continually adapting to the ever-changing needs of today's coordinators. We have the tools needed to help you plan the big return to pomp and circumstance for traditional ceremonies safe, seamless, and better than ever. Marching Order Display allows you to enhance the recognition on stage with a customized video display. You can display information specific to the individual graduates' academic achievements precisely as they hit the mark for the big moment. Use our touchless electronic grad passes, traditional printed cards, or a reader's list to conveniently manage this process. You can seamlessly manage the entire planning process by using one of our custom designed school branded websites to collect graduate data, day of attendance, information, special accommodations, pronunciations, guest information, and much more. The Marching Order Assistant Communication Manager allows you to communicate with your graduates and distribute their electronic grad passes and guest tickets from one convenient hub. Marching Order Pronouns has made mispronunciations and live reader logistics a thing of the past. There's no more awkward pauses or fumbling with microphones. Use Marching Order's pronouns to ensure every name is announced correctly and it's read by one of our talented, experienced voiceover artists. Or you can choose to record with your familiar school readers for guaranteed success using our phonetic toolbox at their disposal. Marching Order highly values our loyal customers, and their feedback is what fuels our team to keep developing continuous enhancements. We are always eager to make improvements and create new customized solutions that will work best in the ever-evolving event environment. We know there's no one-size-fits-all tool, so we have designed our software products to be flexible, robust, and capable of being customized to suit the needs of any type of ceremony. We are always excited to receive an invitation to this conference, and we cannot wait to see you all again in person, hopefully next summer. Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your conference.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Fernan. Appreciate you joining us today and for Marching Order's support of the conference.
You're welcome.
Alrighty, so moving on to today's panel, which we're calling Coaching and Conditioning for the Events Professional. This panel discussion is really meant to be interactive. We've gone ahead and opened the chat for the whole webinar. The event team is going to be adding links and resources to that chat that'll be mentioned as we speak during the panel. And attendees are of course welcome to add and share their own tips to the chat as well. And we're looking for this to become a resource for everybody in attendance here. You'll be able to save the chat to your device, and you can reference that later. In the first portion of our panel, we will discuss some pre-prepared questions, and then in the later portion, we'll ask the audience to, we want to hear your questions as well. Again, please be sure to submit those questions via the Q&A feature and not the chat. The Q&A feature allows the event team to better identify them so that they're not lost in what might become a rather busy chat thread. And now now I want to go ahead and welcome my fellow panelists. I'll stop my screen share here. I want to welcome Mary Coder and Christian to turn on their videos here and join me on the virtual stage. Awesome. Welcome, guys. Nice to see you. So to start us off, I think we should go around the kind of the space and give short bios. I'll start mine first, and then I'll turn it to Mary, and then we can go to Christian. As manager of the CSU Advancement Academy, I organize professional development opportunities for CSU staff and professionals in the full spectrum of advancement and development functions. So I work with lots of other staff groups in addition to the events professionals on the CSU. I've been with the CSU for 5 years, all of which have been at the Chancellor's Office, and most of them within the Division of University Relations and Advancement. I have my BA in Human Development and Master's in Public Administration, both from Cal State Long Beach, so I made in the CSU. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Mary to share a little bit about herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Mary Coder, and I am originally from the Midwest. Although I live in California now, obviously. I have a bachelor's degree in English and Museum Studies from Michigan State University, and I've been working in the events industry for about a decade, mostly in the area of nonprofits. I gained the designation of Certified Meeting Professional in 2016 from the Events Industry Council, and Certified Special Events Professional in 2019 from the International Live Events Association. In my spare time, I serve on the CSU-EPN Executive Council and leadership team. I'm the president of CSUB Staff Forum. I serve as the Literacy Project Chair at Junior League of Bakersfield, and I'm a mentor with Immerman Angels, so I keep busy. On a personal note, I enjoy astrology, Pilates, and K-pop. Since we're all friends here, I thought I'd keep it personal. And that's about all you need to know about me.
We will connect later on astrology, Mary. And now I turn to Christian.
Hello, everybody. My name is Christian Butler. I currently work as a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm the program director for a drug and alcohol program in Orange County, California. I got my bachelor's from Northwestern College in the Midwest in the state of Iowa, and I got my master's degree from Cal Baptist University in Riverside, California. Mental health is something I've done now for 10 years. Very, very passionate about it. I enjoy walking with people through like their life stories and discovering healthy ways that they can improve upon themselves, right? We all are striving to live the best life we can lead, leave fruit and joy around for those that we come into contact with. So in that 10-year period, I've really seen a lot of people grow. I've grown individually as a part of that process. And yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm hoping that I can shine light on the importance of mental health in the workplace, but also to bring attention to how when we are mindful of our mental health, we are able to grow our team's efforts, our productivity in the workspace, and our families and friends just enjoy being around us a lot more because we are happier people. So thank you guys for having me, and I'm glad to do this.
Thank you for joining us. And in fact, we're so excited you're here. We're going to give you the first question.
Oh, well, thank you.
So considering your background in practice and therapy, what advice can you give the audience to help them find their voice in a professional setting? We touched on this a little bit earlier with Jerry in terms of kind of navigating interesting conversations with colleagues and higher ups and leadership, but kind of just in generally speaking, what are some strategies maybe you've worked with clients or with patients that specifically help them better communicate their capacity and advocate for their ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. I think on the topic of what I call would be empowerment or finding your work voice, it starts with remembering what your strengths are. Like everyone is in the position they're in now because they have a set of skills that someone interviewed you and was like, we need you on our team because you can contribute to what we're trying to do here in that regard. It's amazing at times how we forget that. And then we'll start working and we'll go through the daily grind of whatever's required of us. And our skills and our strengths seem to fall by the wayside. Like we have gifts and talents that we want to share with the team to make it better, but we at times will shrink ourselves and not really express it. So I usually encourage supervisors and managers, invite that from your team. Like ask them, how are we doing? Is there anything we could be doing differently to spice up what we do so that the consumer can benefit, but we enjoy being at work. And then from an individual standpoint, maybe it's not invited like you would like it to, but someone to the left or the right of you is begging for an opportunity to share, hey, I think we should do this. I think the team's communication would increase if we did this. I would feel more supported if things were presented this way, and take a healthy chance. What I've seen with my clients is sometimes they have all these great ideas, they say nothing, and then they go to work and they hold on to them, and then they start to feel like who they are and what they contribute is not valued. The work was never the problem. It was, how do I share it with someone? And I just empower them and I encourage them, take a healthy chance. Don't play victim, operate in solution, and see what happens, because somebody else there feels the way you do. So hope that answers your question, but that's how I would go about it.
No,
Encourage somebody.
that's tremendously helpful too. And I think one thing I'll stress with that is this should be an ongoing conversation. Like this shouldn't be like earth shattering when somebody shares their thoughts on how the team can better work at a staff meeting or something. That should kind of be the culture. And if it's not, then I think it's probably wise to start small. Have water cooler talk with one colleague, 2 colleagues, and then once you know that there's some sense of sympathy and people are on the same track with everybody else, and then I think it's appropriate to bring at a staff meeting, and then you could always kind of work it into usual planning that you have. I know managers are always thriving, or always not thriving, rather they're always interested to hear what their team is thinking, and hear new ideas too. Especially if it's a particularly busy unit, that's just one thing to the next, one thing to the next. There's those moments of like reflection and connecting with each other, I feel are really important. All that kind of generally speaking.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And then I'll leave it here to see if maybe Mary or Chris, you had another follow-up thought there.
Well, I guess the follow-up thought to that is, like, really wanting to stress managers, supervisors, like the culture has to invite and breed people to be themselves. Like, you get the most out of your employee when they know they can come to you and share things. We spend most of our time at work. I can't think of another place that I spend 40+ hours at per week. So if I'm going to be here this long, the culture that we create as a team has to be inviting, transparent, and open to change when necessary. So, yeah.
I love that. And you've kind of tapped on the other question I had for you there, when we talked about the spending a lot of time at work. We discussed this with Jerry earlier, but I'm wondering what self-care advice or strategies you can offer the group, particularly considering some of the additional stress and pressures that events professionals, and frankly the world, has been in the last 18 months. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I'll start with the COVID piece, because COVID was a unique hurdle for everyone. Like, we'd never seen it in the short time that I've been alive. I've never had to deal with that. And being like, even now we're meeting for a conference via Zoom and trying to navigate another Zoom conference and another Zoom meeting, and not really having outlets for 18 months that you could tap into to restore your mental, your physical, and your spiritual health. A lot of the times, first couple sessions, first month, it's really looking at what can I do during my private time to be better prepared for what I have to do at work the next day. There's this concept of a tolerance threshold where I have kids, I have a spouse, I have all this stuff going on outside of work, and it doesn't stop because I have a job. So I didn't enter work at 9 o'clock in the morning. On the scale of 1 to 10, I'm at a 7, 10 being a crisis moment, 1 being I'm extremely healthy and happy. So I get to work and I'm on a 7, and I'm like, any little thing that happens today could put me at an 8 or a 9, and then I'm just of no good to the team. So there's ways that we can adopt coping skills, exercising it or going to the gym, deep breathing exercises, seeking out mental health help and encouragement in your private time. Just so that when you go to work, you're more at a 3 or a 4. Like, we're not going to be perfect, but how can I enter the workplace and not be moments away from catastrophe? I believe this is a conference for event specialists. You guys work in the field where, say you plan a homecoming event, and then you're stressed out from that, and then you have a disgruntled visitor at one of these events. I'm already at 8. The last thing you would want is to blow up on somebody because they asked you where the ketchup was at a particular stand. You're like, I don't have it in me to tell you right now, you know? So seek mental health support, identify friends and family you can interact with on a regular basis, and ask yourself, what hobbies do I enjoy so I can utilize them as often as possible so I can come to work and have a chance, you know? So hope that helps you guys out.
Yeah, definitely. And we can't see the audience here, but I can feel them, you know, kind of doing the snapping of agreement when you said the ketchup bit.
Yeah,
I could just feel it in my bones. One thing I kind of want to underscore in that too is the timing for self-care. And to your point too, that, you know, you don't want to wait till you're almost at breaking point to start thinking about self-care. Wondering if we can maybe just backtrack a little bit, and maybe if you have any strategies on kind of strategically planning our elements of self-care. Is there anything maybe you've seen clients do quite successfully, or anything maybe you suggest in your meetings with them?
Yes, so time off, we'll call it that, right? I need to plan ahead and anticipate when I will need some downtime to recharge. Again, event specialists, you guys have a calendar where every so many months or weeks at times, you have something new that you have to do. It is to your benefit to anticipate, I need a day off in 6 months, or I'm going out of town in 6 months. And I have to let that be known to the team now so they can plan around it. I would assume a lot of people in this field desire a day off or like a week off just for a vacation. But they remember, oh, we have this event coming up. And if I take this time off, what position am I going to put everybody else in? Now I feel guilty, and I prolong it and I prolong it. And before I know it, I've worked 365 days. I've taken 4 days off, not counting weekends, and I'm begging for an opportunity to take a day off. So meet with the team, prioritize you because you are important, and say, look, I got to take this time for myself. How can we rally around each other so that the system can still flow? I can recharge, and then when I come back, somebody else go, and things like that. But you have to prioritize you because other people won't do it. Not even out of selfishness, it's just the hustle and bustle of work doesn't permit it sometimes.
Yeah, I love that kind of that connecting with groups to see who's going to fill in the gaps so that others can take the time. And I know that especially in small teams, and I've worked in a lot of nonprofits where it was a small team and then everybody had like 6 hats. So if you lost one person one day, oh boy, it was not pretty. But yeah, and you know, everybody has some sympathy there because, you know, I look out, I fill in, I kind of cover you so you can cover me, and then, you know, everybody benefits in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough.
Yeah, definitely. One resource I kind of want to make the audience aware too is that there's a lot of there's usually at every campus, there's an employee assistance program that's staffed with mental health professionals that's dedicated just for staff. These are different than some of the services that are available to students. And I know that in recent weeks, these might have kind of been under the umbrella of COVID resources. And I really think that, well, frankly, all the changes that have been happening to the events industry is a COVID related you know, symptom. So I feel like that's probably fair game for folks to seek mental health advice and just somebody to talk to some of these changes that have been happening and are probably going to continue to kind of shake out and happen into the fall. So wanted to plug that for everybody. I'm sure you've probably seen the email, but you weren't like, well, is my department's restructuring COVID related? Yes, it could be. So take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do it, people, do it.
Yeah.
It is a very good resource for all.
Definitely. And then now I just kind of want to shift the conversation just a little bit, because in addition to looking out for ourselves, we also have to kind of better our skills and our skill sets, and to do the things we do better, and to, you know, grow new abilities and do our jobs even beyond, what's expected. So what I'm teasing there is professional development. I run a professional development program, so of course I'm a huge advocate of it. But I know our colleague here, Mary, is also a big proponent of it as well. And this question is for you, Mary. As someone who holds a few certificates in event planning and event management, can you share how you earned these certificates and what kind of the process entailed?
Sure. So as I mentioned in my little bio there, I am a certified meeting professional through the Events Industry Council and the Certified Special Events Professional from the International Live Events Association. I've been a CMP for about 5 years, which actually means I have to recertify this year, and a CSUP for about 2 years. What those are is basically it's a certificate that proves that you are a content expert in those areas, meeting planning and special event planning. The way that you get those is first, you have to actually apply to sit for the exam for them. So what that entails usually for both of them, and the requirements are just a little bit different. So I would encourage you to go to both the EIC and the ILIA websites to really get the rundown of what those exact requirements are, and we're going to drop those in the chat for you. But what it basically entails is you have to show proof of your experience in the field. So just your work experience is usually enough, including your CV. And then there's usually a requirement for continuing education credits. And so those are, I think, maybe the hurdle that some people see to getting one of these. And you can get those through going to conferences, workshops, through ILIA and any of those kind of professional development organizations. But you can also, and this is a life hack, and this is what I did, you can get these continuing education credits through attending webinars. So they're usually pre-recorded. You can watch them in your own time. They give you a little certificate from places like Meetings Today and Meetings.net. So I did most of mine that way. So you apply to take the exam, you get accepted to take the exam, and then you sit for the exam. That's the big part, is sitting for the exam. So they both have an exam. They're a little bit different. The CSEP exam is a little bit more writing based. So if you're a strong writer, I would encourage you to go for that one. And CMP is really more multiple choice. So more of a study heavy thing. So that's basically what they are and how you get them. And I will say the why of why I got them is because I am a learner. And I'm sure a lot of you are, because you work in education. I want to be an expert at what I do. I want to be great at what I do, and I want to have the paper to back it up, right? So that's why I did it. The CMP, I actually got a kind of a transition in my career. I went from working venue side to doing more direct event planning. And although I picked up a lot of stuff really quickly as I was going, I really felt that it would help me to just have that foundation of that strong knowledge and just even just the confidence that I knew that I could, pass this exam and do it. So I took it upon myself to get that designation, and I liked it so much that I decided to do CSEP also. So for me, it's been really rewarding and something that I'm very proud of and something that I'm excited to share. They don't make you, practice public speaking as any of these, which is great. I'm not a great public speaker, but I am very passionate about these certifications and about just bettering yourself and professional development. So I'm really excited to kind of share that with everybody.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you for sharing, Mary. It's always nice to have somebody with that background. And it's a good idea to have these certificates in general, because I think we might have talked about this pre-show, but like, you don't go to college to be an event professional. Like, it's one of those things you just have to learn in applied practice. So I think it's great that these organizations are kind of capturing some of those outcomes, those there's a word in academia where you learn something, and that's what that is, into these certificates. And like, to your point, adding a piece of paper to them.
I know it made it not sound as fancy as it is, but it's a big deal. You should be excited if you get it, not just a piece of paper. But you're right that, most of us came into event planning through some other channel. We didn't go to college to be an event planner. I went to college, I was an English and museum studies major. I wanted to be a museum curator. just actually not that different from being an event professional, but it's a different set of skills. And so this is just a way for you to demonstrate that you have those skills in a formal way. I think we're all well-versed in learning as we go and kind of showing our expertise on the ground, but this is just a really good way to formalize it. Really is nothing more than that, just a piece of paper, a fancy piece of paper that shows that you're great at what you do.
Awesome. And then I wanted to ask you, Mary, too, do you find, maybe you can share a couple instances where you're like, oh, this is something I learned in one of the certificate programs in kind of your day-to-day at Bakersfield?
Absolutely. So like I've said a couple times, you sort of learn event planning by doing. We know things just sort of through osmosis. We pick them up as we've gone along. You don't maybe know why you know it, and you don't even really know if that's exactly what, but you kind of have the instinct for it. I've found that having these certifications and doing the studying that I did has helped me really formalize that and give me the confidence to speak with authority on some types of things. For example, I'm not an AV professional. So when I speak to AV professionals about programs, virtual or in person, I now have that language of the AV professional to meet them on their level and speak their same language. And I find that to be really valuable. I don't know about you guys. I mean, you probably noticed I'm like kind of a casual person. I'm like kind of casual. So it is sometimes hard for people to want to take me seriously, and I get that. But I think then having that language and having that backup to say like, no, I'm a serious person and I'm serious about what I do and I'm great at it, gives me the confidence to speak on the same level as these people and know that I know what I'm talking about and not be intimidated to talk about AV, even though it's maybe not my area of expertise. So I see that coming up a lot. And really just the formalizing of things. Like you might in your head kind of know, okay, a projector should be X amount of feet from a screen, but just having that language to say, actually, I know industry standard does that, it's this many, and industry standard is that we should have this percentage of seating for a cocktail hour. Really just adds to the gravitas of what you're saying. It makes people listen, makes people stand up and recognize that you know what you're talking about. When they say, how do you know that? You say, because that's industry standard, instead of saying, I don't know, I just know it.
I love that. And again, my head is still swirling with things that Jerry said, but I think in the certificates provide a bit of fulfillment for some folks. And you mentioned your reasons, Mary, which are very apt. But I think this is another good morale booster for teams as well. When they have another feather they could put on their cap, a badge that they can add to their email signature where they completed something and really demonstrated that they now have a new set of skills or a new competency in an area, is also in a kind of roundabout way a bit of self-care and fulfillment as well. And I want to thank our stage manager too, to remind everybody to add your questions into the Q&A pod for us to address as a group as well. We're getting towards the end of our pre-scripted questions, so we'd love to hear what you guys are thinking and maybe areas that you guys are curious to hear us kind of touch on. Yeah, so the one last question I have for you, Mary, sorry, I seem to be picking on you in this section, but wondering how you went about, so the certificates come with a nominal fee, but I'm wondering how you went about getting those paid, and was your employer reimbursing you, or did they cover any of those costs? Because I think this is sometimes a point that folks get caught up on when it comes to professional development, given that overall professional development budgets are very trim. So happy to hear how you went about financing those certificate programs.
Yeah, so the CMP I actually paid for myself. I was starting kind of a pivot in my career, going from venue side in the nonprofit to a small event planning firm. And like I said, although I was picking it up and I was going kind of quickly, I really felt like I needed some formalized education to really give me the confidence to be great at event planning. So I took it upon myself to pay for and study for that on my own time. It's an investment, and I really like what Christian was saying before about being your best advocate and that sort of thing, and really investing in yourself. And I saw that as an investment in myself. That could make me better at what I do and make me better equipped to move forward in the career that I had chosen. So I paid for that one myself. The CSEP, I actually had a professional development budget at a museum that I worked events at. And that year I didn't do a lot of conferences or anything. So there was some money hanging around there. And so I made the case to my supervisor that, I should put that money toward the CSEP. And I think that's an important tip too, is that be ready to make that case. You might be challenged by your supervisor to say, well, why should we pay for that? Or are you going to leave if you get that? Why are you trying to do that? Be ready with that case. Be ready to tell them why you want to do it. Be ready to show them already the education that you've done. Well, I've already done these 25 continuing education credits, so I can apply for it. Show your devotion and why it's important to you. So I did all of that. And I pointed to my CMP and said, I already have this designation. I found it to be really rewarding and important for me. And I'd really like to get this one too. Can I use my professional development budget for that? And she agreed. So I was lucky, very lucky enough to get that one covered. But I would say that money can be a problem with this. And if you can get it covered, that's amazing. But if you can't, it is something that is worth investing in. You're worth investing in. So if you can, pay for it yourself, I would recommend trying.
Mm-hmm. And I love that too, the kind of get ready with your case statement. And essentially what that needs to be is, these are the responsibilities I have, and this is how they can be improved by XYZ course of study. And in fact, that experience reminded me of the way that I actually got my master's through the CSU fee waiver program for employees. And essentially all that does is you submit a plan that maps out what are you studying, how is that going to improve your responsibilities or where you want to be by the time you finish it. It gets filed away with HR, and then they magically waive away your fees because you're a CSU employee and you get to go to school. And I think that's a tremendous resource that we have here at a university. I know that some public entities like county governments offer the same kind of program, but it's not as seamless. I think in some cases you kind of have to pay it up front and then they reimburse you after you finish it. But there's something about working at a university, having access to kind of that back end where they can kind of clear your account of fees. That just is such a rare opportunity. And I know that there's even some related programs in the CSU that could be quite beneficial to events professionals. So definitely worth looking at maybe your extending ed college and some of the folks you work with kind of as clients to see if that particular department could be of interest for your own professional development. So thank you, Mary. That's tremendously helpful as always. And I'm gonna just work here to pivot the conversation again. So part of what we've been discussing in today's session is also tips for successful time management. And I have one kind of ready to go it's a webinar that I'm going to try to summarize for everybody here. And then our event team's going to drop the link to the recording in the chat. And then, so I'll give you the scoop on that one. Before I do, I want to mention the program that hosted the webinar. So our Division of Human Resources here at the CSU has an arm that provides professional development programming in webinar format for many, many years now. This was before the pandemic. And this was meant to be kind of, lunch hour digestible pieces of professional development on professional writing, public speaking, kind of general skills that most people need. One of the webinars was on time management. The link is in the chat. And the thing that really stuck out to me about this one was that the presenter opened it up by saying that the first step towards effectively managing your time is to kind of dump out all the things that you have to do out of your head to some other tool, whether it be a notebook, whether it be some kind of electronic planner, anything, but just and to keep that practice of not letting them live in your head and trying to keep track of all the things you have to do while simultaneously thinking of the things, how to do them. So you dump everything out to this tool. It helps you already feel better. And then you again, set some time for yourself to go through those once a day, once a week, and kind of map out the things you need to do. The other neat thing about kind of dumping out everything into one place is that it lets you see all the things you've committed to. And then it also makes it easier to defend additional commitments by pointing to the long list of things you have waiting for your attention there as well. So the link is in the chat. feel free to catch that recording whenever you can. CSU folks, you're welcome to browse the CSU Got Talent webinar series on the employee intranet. And for our UC private school colleagues, we'll send you guys the YouTube link whenever they're posted, because I don't think you guys can get into that particular intranet site. But with that being said, I want to turn it to both Mary and to Christian to see if they have any tips in terms of time management, or maybe keeping meeting focus, anything in that vein.
Yeah. I can jump in regards to time management. Like, I will not survive a work week if I don't have a to-do list. So I break it down into categories of things that must get done today, and I list those out before I do anything at work. I then have a list of things that must get done this week, and then things that must get done this month. And each of those is determined based off of, like, is it time sensitivity? So like, if I got to get it done, I got to get it done. It holds me accountable. And as I check those things off, I go on to the next task. I had to do that because at one point I was trying to remember everything I needed to do, keep it jumbled in my head, and then I would either forget or at the last minute have to scramble to accomplish a task. So I said, no, I need to organize these things, reduce my anxiety, increase my chances of being successful in the workplace. And that has saved my life. Like, I wish I would have known that 5 years sooner than I started to do it. But listing things out is one of my key tactics.
I'd like to actually bring it back around to kind of self-care and say that, you are your best self and you're your most productive when you are feeling that you are not stretched too thin. So I think it's always important to kind of balance all of that work that you have done with, making sure you take those breaks, making sure you put an hour on your calendar where you say, I'm not going to take any meetings because I need to do my emails during this time, or I need to have lunch. Looking out for yourself and making sure that you can work at your peak when you are working, I think is really important. Everybody wants to come from a place of yes and say yes to everything, yes to every meeting, yes to every event, but that's just not realistic. And if we want to give our best, we need to sometimes come from a place of no, unfortunately. But you can think of it as, I'm saying no to your thing because I'm saying yes to other things that have a higher priority. I'm saying yes to myself. I'm saying yes to performing at my peak. So for me, I think prioritizing things, just like you said, what needs to be done right now, what can I push off, what can I delegate, what can I focus on and really give my attention to. That's how I manage my time.
Mm-hmm. Very well said, Mary. And to kind of underscore the point too, it's like, it's not necessarily a no, it's like a hold that thought, or maybe later, or we still keep up that service oriented persona that we have to have in our roles, but it's just one of those, this is going to take its place in a queue of other things, but it's going to get our full attention when it does. So definitely there. And then I know that the team for today's sessions reached out to the CSUEPN network, and we collected a couple of neat tips in terms of time saving, time management, not so much time saving, time management and meeting organization that we're going to drop into the chat as well. But I'll just kind of briefly mention them. A colleague mentioned that it's a good idea to balance your schedule. If you're, instance, working on a few major projects simultaneously, you might want to work on them in 45 to 60-minute intervals and then shift focus to a new project. And that'll help you keep creative, help you kind of come back to something. Because I'll be perfectly honest, there's been times where I've been looking at the one email and it took me way too long to write that email because all I was doing was maybe focusing on the one paragraph when I could have stepped away, came back, busted it out, and done it a little bit more. A tip in the space that it's sometimes it's a good idea to catch a break from something to come back to it later and do a better job at it. And then the other tip that we got also from our network in regards to helping calendar meetings is to, instead of listing, for instance, touch points on a particular topic as one-on-ones, actually add the topic that you'll be discussing, because especially for upper administration, it helps them understand the content of what you want to discuss, and it helps them prioritize as well, because they're doing the same thing we are as well in terms of, you know, what needs my attention now. And if you phrase something as something you know, regular or not important, then guess what, it's going to get bumped down as well. Yeah, so some tips from our network here that again we'll be adding to the chat shortly. Wanted to turn it to Mary and Christian. Maybe you guys have some little other thoughts as well when it comes to reaching out to folks, or organizing your time as well. And I'll reiterate my call to the audience here to go ahead and drop your questions for us, or your tips as well. Questions in the Q&A and tips in the chat. But yeah, but Mary, Christian, we'd love to hear your thoughts if you have anything else percolating, and if not, that's fine too.
Well, I would just say that it's important to figure out if this is a task that you can delegate rather than try to take on. As Mary mentioned, before you know it, that to-do list that I told you I create, sometimes it gets a little longer than I can handle. I heard at a conference one time, all of us is better than one of us. So how can I delegate these things out to increase productivity and save myself some mental heartache, and prioritize time after work and things like that. So I just want to encourage people to delegate if it's a possibility.
Ditto. And then keeping on kind of the same vein, and we touched on it a little bit, but I'm wondering, what are some good and bad habits that have come out of work from home? I know one of the bad ones is, well, it's a lot easier to jump into meetings now. So that means that they become closer together on people's calendars and longer. So I've known a few colleagues that are in the practice now of dropping a hold on their calendar just for their lunch. So that's like a bad thing that turned into a good strategy to mitigate a bad thing, I think, that came out of work from home. But wondering if you two have any thoughts on either the good or the bad that came out of the work from home environment.
I think, and I actually was discussing this with my team yesterday, that we've really become good at identifying what needs to be a meeting and what needs to be an email. I think before, especially when we were in the office, we would just pop over to somebody's space and try to speak to them or set up a meeting to just discuss something kind of nebulous and big, whereas now we kind of can be a little bit more thoughtful about that. Do I need to set up a Zoom to talk about this, or can we hash it out through email? I think taking that as we go back to the office and really not just being considerate of your time and what's important to you, but also considering what might be important to other people and how they're using their time, I think is going to be something great that's actually come out of a pretty bad situation. So for me, I'm also always ready to say, like, actually, I can't make that meeting because I'm, doing these other things, but I'd love to discuss it over email. Why don't you send me your questions and then I can get back to you a lot sooner than if we have to schedule this out. So just being honest about what you have time for and being, mindful of what your priorities should be during that limited time that you have.
I love that. Are you seeing anything similar in your space, Christian?
I think,
or maybe not, because I think you work maybe on your meetings carry a little bit more weight, right?
Well, yeah, if we're meeting about somebody, a client's in a crisis, so not that you guys don't experience similar crises, but I don't want to call it a negative, but an interesting thing I've noticed about working from home is people struggle to identify, what is the space used for? Normally we would drive to work, and then we would get there, we'd spend our time there, we'd come home, and I knew I was at home and I can adopt what I do at home. Now I work from home, I host meetings from home, I teach from home if I have kids. I also try to sleep, eat, and do all the things I do here, and it just was a jumbled understanding or context for what the house looked like. So people would be off work but didn't really feel off work, or they would prolong work knowing I'm going to be home anyway, I can get to it later. And that habit, I would encourage people to dig deep and figure out what can you do to break it and to create some separation from I'm at home and I'm off work, or I'm at home working. Just because the more and more you get into that, your self-care starts to go out of the window. We don't care to shower before work. We just need to look good for the Zoom meeting. No one can smell my breath, but I should have brushed my teeth this morning. A lot of those things start to get neglected, and we don't realize that we mirror some low mood activity, and then we're wondering why we're sad or depressed. So,
and that's funny too, because that reminds me of something I heard where like there's power in ritual. You know, there was a ritual of us getting ready, driving to work, and then that got us into the space of like, okay, we're here to work. And I think we can probably keep some of those elements in our work from home as well. Whether it's, you know, like you gotta put on a certain type of shirt when you sit in front of your computer, wear a certain pair of shoes when you're in front of your computer. Something that again adds elements of that ritual, that when you log on to work, even if you're in essentially the same space you do everything else. Yeah, so I would advise the audience here to just find a piece or two of that ritual to reminisce about what it was like to get ready and drive to work and have that be a thing. Although some of us are returning to that space now, and they're returning to that ritual of commuting to work.
mm-hmm.
So with that too, I went ahead and kind of teased the next question in terms of returning to the office. And I'm wondering, you know, and for some of us too, we'll be working kind of two spaces at the same time. So are we looking at situation, in your opinions, are we looking at situation where, you know, we do email from home, we do project stuff at work? I know for some of us that work in the events and that are on the hands-on, naturally it's you run the event at the event site, and then you do kind of the pre-planning somewhere else. But that was back when offices were kind of on campus, and it was just a matter of moving from one place across campus to the other. But now you have the other element of one of those workspaces is potentially at home or away from campus altogether. Wondering if you guys have found any themes in the activities that you do in a certain space, and if that makes sense for you guys. A noodly question, of course.
So I haven't returned to the office yet. We're actually returning to the office at the beginning of August. So I'm still in full work from home mode. I'm wearing work clothes today because I'm on Zoom, but you know, sometimes in the pajamas. But I think one thing that we've all learned from working from home is just to be flexible, right? And I hope to carry that forward with, you know, working from the office, sometimes working from home, sometimes what works for me that day. You know, do I have to go and sit at my desk in the office to order chairs for an event? Probably not. I could probably do that at my house. But should I be in the office to, I don't know, talk, you know, have a meeting instead of doing it over Zoom with one of my colleagues? Should I be in the office the full day before an event so I can be there to kind of meet with anybody who happens to come up or address any challenges as they arise? So I think just being flexible and knowing that, you know, it might not be the same every day. And that's something that event planners are great at, just taking whatever's coming at them and rolling with it. So I hope that we'll all excel at this, but I think it's just important to not put too much pressure on yourself to do one, you know, I was going to be here 100% today, but you know, now I have to go home, and you know, it's okay. Just all be flexible and be understanding of other people too.
I think for me, because in my workspace, we've never shut down and worked from home, just because, you know, the mental health sector was considered an essential need. So we were here on the front lines. But other people I've talked to, a common theme we all discussed was, man, we're pretty resilient when we needed to be. And I think as people return to the office, the amount of resources that we were able to gather from a disconnected space, how resilient we were, and not falling into the trap to support what Mary was saying of being rigid with things. Like, don't bring that back with you to the office. Now that you've returned, maintain those aspects of you, because that's what got us through the 18 months. And now that we can actually see each other, fellowship and do different things, I think we're better for it. And oddly enough, people will start to see that, I think, going into the last half of this year. So, yeah.
Well said, Christian. And I'm taking a look at the time now, and we are right there. So I'm going to thank thank you, Mary. Thank you, Christian, so much for your time this afternoon. It's been lovely chatting with you, and I'm sure our audience appreciated all the insight you guys shared. So with that, I want to go ahead and you guys are welcome to turn off your video and go on mute. And then I'm going to welcome back our friend Devaney to give us some bit of housekeeping and some important reminders about the rest of the conference that's ongoing for us.
Okay. Sorry, I clicked like start video. Started video, stop video, started video, stop video. It was, here we go. Bear with me, everyone. Hi, Sam, thank you. I really hope everyone enjoyed day 2. I know that I myself took a lot of notes and took some great takeaways from Jerry, Sam, Mary, Christian, the whole bunch. So I hope that everyone was able to kind of benefit from the content that we gave today. I'm going to close out today's program by giving you a sneak peek into next week's sessions and providing a few important reminders. So day 3 of our summer series will take place next Thursday, July 22nd, and we'll explore how to effectively leverage social media to market and enhance your events. We will begin with a panel discussion, including 5 social media and digital communication experts from the CSU system. Then we'll explore a case study from UC San Diego on how their event and marketing team collaborated to market a series of events. So you don't want to miss it. Make sure that you're all tuned in July 22nd. We also encourage you to post about your experience today and network with members and new friends on the CSUEPN social media outlets. Some of those outlets are here on your screen. Again, don't miss the chance to nominate a deserving colleague for an award. As a reminder, the deadline was extended until the end of day tomorrow. So we hope to get a bunch of nominations in from you all and to see you all here on the 29th for the award ceremony. Finally, representatives from our sponsors will be available to meet with you all in our virtual exhibit hall until 2:30 p.m. today. The links to join the booths are in your conference email, and they will also be added into the chat shortly. So don't miss this opportunity to network with them. It's more intimate setting than you would normally find with a lot of these sponsors, and they're here for us, and we're so happy to have them. So please make sure that you check out the virtual exhibit booths. And again, they'll be there till 2:30 p.m. today. And with that, I have nothing else to say to you all. Thank you all for logging into today's sessions. A recording of today's event will be posted to the CSUEPN YouTube channel, and a link will be shared with the network email as well. So thank you all for tuning in again, and we will see you all next week.